I'd like to call the Muhlenberg Township Board of Commissioners meeting for Monday, April 18, 2022. To order, all please rise for the pledge and please remain standing for a memorial moment. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment for Bob Siders, who passed away on April 16, 2022. Bob's a father of Parks and our Parks Department employee, Kirk Siders. Thank you. Good evening, Marcy. We did have an executive session. Today's meeting, minutes, please. Public presentations. Jim, we have no public presentations. Correct. All right, so we'll go to the first public portion, a time for residents and taxpayers, township to comment on matters of concerns, actions, or deliberations which may be before the board of commissioners. Please leave your comments to 5 minutes, and please, rather than the audience, allow the person addressing the board to address us and us to respond. So first, I believe that's you, Judy. Judy Delmore signed in.
I would like to speak about the article with the fireworks. Everything listed here is common sense. And if I just moved into the township since the beginning of the year, there's nothing that tells me I can't shoot fireworks off in the street. There's nothing that tells me I can't do it within 150 yards of a building. I'll drive around, see all these tents and all these things put up with fireworks for sale, so I assume while they're in the townships, I'm allowed to use these. Last year, in the 700 block of Euclid Avenue, there were 2 families that were having a contest to see who could shoot off the most fireworks in the middle of the street. 3 different times, we had to call the police department. They come, they stop it, and as soon as the police were going, they started again. You have to let the people know about that. And I do not believe there's any residents in Hyde Park or South Temple, or maybe a few in South Temple or Temple, where you can shoot fireworks off in your yard. Our lot is only 120 feet deep, not 150. But the people have to be told. It has to be mentioned to them. And the other thing that I have is, last week I was at Crossroads Restaurant and 3 men came in and sat at a table right beside where I was sitting. And they were complaining about the fire department, about our fire department. The trucks don't show up. There's nobody to drive the trucks. And this sharing that we have is getting a little tiresome for some of them. I could finally deduct that the one was from Leesport Fire Company. I don't know where the other 2 are from. And I don't know anything about that. I don't know if what they're saying is true, but it's something that maybe the commissioners should check into, because I pay taxes. And John, you're always saying, oh, we haven't raised taxes. We haven't raised taxes. I'd rather you raise the taxes and pay the firemen to come to a fire when there's a fire call. Because all the taxes that I have paid, and we've lived in our house 43 years, all the taxes I have paid to the township would not replace my home or its furnishings if it burned to the ground. Put the taxes up and pay the firemen to come. And I'm sure I'm not the only resident that would feel that's a good move.
Judy, if I can say something about that. You know, I issues with our fire department, yeah, we probably have issues. But if those people were from Leesport, and I see the chief back there now, over the last couple of years when I've been maintaining where we go mutual aid, we always went to Leesport many more times than they came.
I'm just saying what I heard.
I'm just saying that Leesport has that's what mutual aid's all about. But Leesport, if they complain about coming to Muhlenberg, I think we can look at numbers and we've gone to Leesport probably many more times than they've come here.
I'm just telling you what I heard in a
Okay.
public restaurant.
Yeah.
Thank you, Judy. Mark, George, Mark?
Good evening, you guys, commissioners, everyone. I just want to elaborate a little bit, just a real quick, put some explanation to the Leesport thing. The Temple Fire Company, in its own separate organization years ago, was actually one of the first two fire departments to respond to calls in Muhlenberg Township, which means we were about to do it at the same time Leesport did. So that's why you saw more responses to Leesport than them coming down here. That was, we actually had our second run part was actually a part of Muhlenberg Township that borders Maiden Creek and Muhlenberg up there. We were actually the first Duke company, and as well as Leesport, who was a geographic company. So that's why that's the explanation of that. Anyway, the other reason I'm here is we wanted to kind of address what we talked about 2 months ago when Judy brought something up and we talked about it. Just to put some history into play here, $170,000 house assessed at that pays 31 cents a day for fire protection in this township. That's not bad. $112 a year. You spend more than that taking a family out to eat at a diner or a restaurant than you do for a whole year of fire protection for the current daytime situation, which is 8 to 4, Monday through Friday, times 2. Okay, now, as we've seen in the last couple of days, fires happen any time. There were 2 fires in the last less than a week throughout the night, which coincidentally, statistically, over 50% of the fatal residential fires occur between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. in the morning. These 2 fires were at that time. When it goes around 4 o'clock, one was before 6. So at that point, people are sleeping. People are sleeping. They don't realize their house is on fire. They're hoping somebody comes and rescues them, puts their fire out. It does the job that, in this case, they're getting charged a fire tax for, and it's not happening. Now, the township has been gracious enough over the years, and Commissioner Malinowski's been around for the whole ride. When I was chief up at Temple, they committed to buying fire apparatus, which we cash strapped couldn't afford to do. They committed to starting the incentive program, and they committed to this daytime driver thing. Being about 15 years ago, this daytime driver thing started with the agreement at that time, maybe a gentleman's agreement, that it was going to improve to get to the point of a paid fire department, or at least paid 24-hour-a-day staff, which we have yet to get to. Now that's, I'll admit, and the people here that know me in the audience, I'm as thrifty as they come, but I know when it's time to spend money, and it's time to spend money. You have to protect these people's interests of their families' well-being and the property owners in this township. We can't be led to believe that someone's going to show up and they're not going to show up. We can boast, like Judy said, we can boast taxes weren't raised for 7 years. Guess what? You kill somebody's family, they burn somebody's house down, you're going to be barking up another tree. That's not going to mean anything in the court when they say, well, what do you have to defend yourself? Well, we didn't raise the taxes for 7 years. You need to improve our quality of life here, which is safety. We have a top-notch police department that's fully funded. We have a top-notch EMS system, which is fully funded. And we have a fire department that's minimally funded. Is that fair to the residents of this township? A fire doubles in size every 30 seconds. Statistically, a fire in a residential house could be fully engulfed in less than 6 minutes. Your whole house would be fully involved in 6 minutes. The parameters, I'm not quite sure what they are now, but the parameters when I was a fire chief was in 4 minutes, you had to respond. If you didn't respond, they response checked you. 5 minutes, they sent the next 2 company. After a period, I don't know what it is now, after a period of time, they sent cover-up companies. But what's happening now, mutual aid's not coming out. So the mutual aid, you're covering twice. You're covering the primary company, Muhlenberg Township, the secondary company, mutual aid company, they're not coming out. So we're waiting for a truck to come from Fleetwood, maybe, to help with the fire in Muhlenberg Township. How long do you think you last burning up in a house, waiting for a fire truck to come from Fleetwood? You'd be dead. Your house would be burned down, you lose everything. And the thing you have to realize is we started this part-time program with the thought that we always said baby steps. Everything is educating everybody, baby steps. Certainly I don't know the political structure like you guys do, and you certainly don't know the fire department structure like I do, or we do, But it's at the point in time now, and like I shared the other month with you, unless we jumped in when Judy was talking, just to go through real quick history here. 330,000 volunteers in 1980, less than 30,000 today in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, 67 counties. That's pretty terrible. Of your paycheck, from six, that kind of money to this, you'd be broke. Meaning that it takes money and time to do things around here, or anywhere in your own home. So we need the support of this township financially to allow this fire chief, who is the best candidate you could have picked, because he lived the volunteer service. He was a volunteer firefighter in Reading. He transitioned into a paid firefighter in Reading, so he knows how this all works. How you go from a volunteer system into a paid system. He lived it, and he's still living it. So he needs his resources, which is money. And nobody wants to raise the taxes, but something has to be done. We like I said, we've been toying around with this. I've been out 9 years as a fire chief. We were toying around with this long before I get out, trying to get more support. And like I said, Commissioner Malinowski, he's been here for this whole journey. And I understand you don't want to raise people's taxes, but you burn somebody's, for instance, they're building new houses, 70 houses back here, $400,000 or $500,000 houses. You think they'd mind? Well, I know it's not going to be 31 cents a day because the assessment being a little higher. But you think anybody's going to balk at having your own vacation in Florida? And we've been the cause of regular people on vacation, their house burns down, other places too. Do you think it's nice to go on vacation, maybe go to work and say, well, God forbid something happens, my house catches on fire. Maybe it won't burn down. Maybe they'll save my house. Maybe they'll save my family in the middle of the night, hanging out the windowsill. It happens. And you don't want to think that. I've seen it in my 30 years in the city. People die in fires, places burn down. The response time in the city is less than 4 minutes on location most times. And we burn places down in there because that's just what fire does. It consumes until it runs out of things to burn. People and furnishings, that's what it does. And I understand, but you know what? You have to understand too, from a taxpayer standpoint, and from somebody that's in the know, not a lay person that doesn't understand what all goes on here. I understand the whole thing. And that's why I'm kind of here, to make sure you do what you're supposed to do. It's not a hard decision. We pay school taxes that you can't even, and people don't go to school board meeting and complain. I don't know why. You do one of 22,000 residents in this
We
township.
hear you loud and clear, believe me, we hear you loud and clear. We hear of the recent incidents, we've been made aware of them. And we understand the concerns that you have or that Judy would have, and we're, seriously consider how we move forward, but it isn't just that easy as saying, oh, let's go pay $5. There's civil service stuff, there's impacts to volunteers that are now volunteers that probably might not like direction from pay. There's a whole lot of other debate into it, but all I can tell you, I hear you loud and clear, we hear you loud and clear, we're looking at it. We have to analyze it, but, I understand maybe it's a little late, but we were told at least, and Kevin and Wolf, as the commissioner, or Wolf can comment more, once we got this through, we understand we're gonna have to evaluate. We're gonna say that we're gonna have to have means to pay for it, but, we had to take the merger, we got through that, now we're going to evaluate it, because from me not being on the fire side of it with these guys that were so invested in it, the one thing I always heard was if we get paid guys, some of the volunteers are gonna be pissed off and leave. And then we won't be ready to sufficiently just go right to 10 guys. It's just, we don't have that capability to do that. All I can tell you is that it's on the top of our list. We're evaluating it. I know, I see the chief back there and at the board of directors meeting. So that's all we can do at the present time, but it's just not something we can, snap our
Well,
fingers.
it's all what you make it. It's all what you make it to begin. Nobody says you have to have full-time people. There's fire departments in Pennsylvania to utilize part-time people to fill these kind of hours we're talking about. The driver in each station 24 hours a day. You fill it with part-time people and supplement with volunteers. If the volunteers get mad, we don't have volunteers.
The problem right now is that we don't have enough part-time people to start with.
Not from internally.
Yeah, drivers.
Not from internally, but you certainly expand it to qualified people that are willing to come and work for the township. The staffing schedule is not full now with the people we have internally because we're running out of people. The guy that used to get that truck out all the time, God rest his soul, passed away. They lost their key man up there at Temple Station because of him passing away by these situations, occurring in the middle of the night. So you're not going to fix that. The only way you fix it is bring people here. And we've
I don't know what else to tell you, but we understand.
Well, we've heard this for years and years and years. This is always the talk, and it never gets back.
I had a couple comments, Mark, and
we take everything you're saying to heart. We took it to heart the last time you said it.
You always do, but it
the
doesn't change.
before you said it, we've heard what Judy said, and we've listened to the community.
Mhm.
Now, there are things, first, let me say, when you stand there and you say that we don't understand what's going on, I've been involved with this, I've been involved with fire company since I was sworn in. I've been liaison, I've worked on the merger,
Okay.
I've had a lot of meetings, I served on the fire board. I do not run fire calls, I am not a volunteer, but to say that I do not understand is a misnomer. I've been involved with this, I've been involved from the understanding what the volunteers want, and what the volunteers needed, what it takes to buy apparatus, what it takes to fund departments, and I have looked at this thing up one side and down the other. And I sat here years and years ago and said, eventually, like every other municipality in this state and in the greater northeast of the United States, are going to be going to fully funded departments. And we have been looking at these numbers and what the impact is to the citizens of this township. Now, what you don't hear is, we had a meeting here years and years ago when we started this merger process.
Mhm.
And the first thing that happens is most of the volunteers, not all the volunteers, a good number of the volunteers sat here and said, basically, township should keep our business out of the fire company. But they know what they're doing. I said, we're starting to take action now because there are fewer volunteers. They didn't want us involved. Went ahead with the merger anyway.
Mhm.
And then the volunteers sat there, not all of them, but a good number of them, and said, all you want to do is turn this into a paid department. So there's fighting on all different ends here. And we have worked very, very hard to try to get us to where we are today. And one of the arguments that I have always sat there and made and said, if we have to have a stipend, which we do, to help offset some of the costs to the volunteers,
Mhm.
or if we have to pay paid drivers part-time, which we already have, like, we're already moving in that direction, so everybody has to accept that. Commissioner Malinowski's point, Mark, it happened overnight. This is a long, long process.
It's been a long process. We've been working this for 15 years.
So
It's been a 15-year process. It's got no better.
Understand that we've been trying to make as much process or progress as we can.
I don't believe in it.
I cannot force volunteers to come out.
Well, the stipend program only works to reward those that are willing to come out and do it at the time. It doesn't generate people to come out and do the job.
Well, Mark, I don't think we can sit debate. All we can do is tell you, look, you say we haven't been listening for 15 years. I think Commissioner Lurch just told you, when we try to get you guys to merge so we can get down this road of maybe having, when we think we'll have to get the fully paid, you guys told us to stay out of your business.
Well, I wasn't part of that.
Oh, well, no,
I wasn't part of
take me out, you're kicking you too, Mark.
I wasn't
Say
part of it
you're
for 9
doing
years.
stuff.
I wasn't part of it for 9 years. I've been out at the end of 2012, Mike. I haven't been part of it for 9 years.
Commissioner Lurch's
And
point,
that's
we
the- that's
have
your
been- we've been
interpretation.
Taking your advice, we've done so much that we think we can for the volunteers, but we had to get this process done first. That the commissioners invested countless hours of time to try to get us where we have one company and how we fund it. And to Commissioner Lurch's point, it's just, they know it as good as anybody. We lean on them to help educate us because of what they went through. But it's disingenuous to say that we haven't, when we've taken feedback from, in order to keep volunteers, because the numbers were going down so bad. We took their feedback and stayed out of it for a while until we realized that if we don't get the trucks out, we can't do that until we have one Muhlenberg Township fire and rescue.
And how did that work out? How did that make it any better 2 years ago? Things are worse now than they were in 100 years of volunteer fire companies were doing it themselves with operating the thing.
Well, you
See, I understand you get a lot for the volunteers. When are you gonna do something for the residents? You keep paying the people that come around, but you don't try to find people to come to do the job. This township, the first place township especially, is on the hook. More than most people are in this county or state. You're in a higher plateau of what you need to provide as far as services, emergency services. And that means especially if you're charging us a fire tax of any amount, and I was at the meetings when we were told specifically, we're increasing the fire tax so a fire truck shows up to your house or to a call in this township. That's not happening. So that's a falsehood. That's not happening. And I understand you're gonna take time. We're done taking time. 15 years. I struggled through 23 years as a fire chief working with the Borough Temple, who was very gracious with what they had to give us, and then Muhlenberg Township. But guess what? That ship has sailed. We're out of people. Who are you gonna pee off? There's nobody to pee off if you do what you're gonna do. Who's left? Nobody. Can't get a truck in the street. You know, my house burns down, somebody gets killed. Hey, we had to buy new snowplows, we had to do other things. I mean, not even go into that. But guess what? The only liability that you have is the fire, EMS, and police. Police don't show up, somebody's in a jam. The ambulance doesn't show up, now you're collecting money, somebody's in a jam, and the same with the fire department. And I did say I appreciate what you did for me personally as a fire chief over the years and what you've done for these residents, but you gotta step up your game. Townships of this size, going from 16,000 people in 1990 to over 22,000, that's a pretty big increase of people to protect. Spring Township, Wyomissing Borough, the city of Reading has done this since forever, and things, guess why? You are not even gonna be on the hook for building firehouses. They're all built and almost paid for. Cooper's gonna be on the hook for millions and millions of dollars to build a firehouse, and fire apparatus and pay staff. You guys are in easy street here, you just have to worry about paying the people. Everything else is already in motion.
Mark, you made your point. We're gonna discuss this.
Well, I want a public commitment tonight from you that we're gonna have this, we're gonna step this up, we're gonna speed this process up here.
Nothing can be done tonight.
What's that?
Nothing can be done.
I didn't say tonight, but I'm saying we're not gonna wait 15 more years.
All I'm saying is you make your point. You got your point across very well. We're gonna have a discussion.
Okay. That's good, I appreciate it.
Okay.
But we've had this discussion many times, and I just want to bring it to the public agenda because I never did that before.
You did, but I think it's time to end it right now.
It's not that important, you're right, thank you.
I didn't say it was not important.
You can say about not raising taxes, how many times we can't continue to talk about something that's a serious threat to our residents.
Mark, you made your point.
I think the point is, Mark, we've been talking about it, we've been taking action.
Okay.
You want something that had happened 5 years ago. It didn't happen 5 years ago. You're upset about that. We understand that. So we've been taking action, and I don't know what else to say other than we've been taking action. We've been taking a lot of steps.
Any other commissioners? Any comments? Anyone else wish to speak under the first public portion? All right. We'll move on. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments on the consent agenda?
I had a question. Looking at the line items, at the real estate transfer tax. That number seems so much bigger than we were expecting. It just
Was we just got a big check and I guess it's March or 300 big chunk. I'll have to look what specifically transferred that caused that. But it was,
really 500,000.
It was the Amazon.
is that what am I-
The business park, the real estate transfer tax, the business park over, across from Crossroads.
Yeah, that's one of those.
And we have another one, I think, coming up too. On that transfer for 70 million. on
That's-
several properties.
That's the one.
That's
That was the one
That was the
yeah.
one.
All right, we can get to that information.
Yeah.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Noes, if any, the ayes have it, so ordered. Any unfinished business? New business, any motion to approve the payment of bills presented by the Director of Finance and Customer Service? Seconded. Questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Noes, if any, the ayes have it, so ordered. A motion to adopt ordinance 609, creating a fraud protection program for the police department. Moved.
Second.
Questions or comments?
Should go a long way. I'm trying to, this is detective that came up with this. You know, fraud is rampant nowadays, and I think this is a really good way to kind of put a cap to that. Everybody knows that people use gift cards in all sorts of different ways. Programs like that.
Any further questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those if any, the ayes have it, so ordered. Any motion to approve the reduction of the letter of credit for the River Crest Phase 2 subdivision in the amount of $326,483.02.
Move.
Second. Questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those if any, the ayes have it, so ordered. In a motion to approve the proposed franchise agreement with Comcast,
Move.
Second.
Mr. Setley, could you just explain this in a nutshell so the community understands what we have to do?
Yeah, in order for cable providers in Pennsylvania to use the public right of ways for their cable infrastructure, they need to enter into a franchise agreement with the township. The township, in essence, gets a fee of about 5% of the amount that the cable company charges for cable services. I believe it is 10 years. The last one we had was in 2012, so it's time to renew it. And it won't, from a resident standpoint, it'll be transparent, nothing will change.
Pretty much a royal type of agreement.
It is, we negotiated some accountability into it, but yeah, it starts with pretty much boilerplate they set out to everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Setley. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those if any, the ayes have it, so ordered. Any motion to approve paid-in application 5 to CMS LLC in the amount of $340,100.55 for work completed on the Fifth Street Phase 2 revitalization project.
Move.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those if any, the ayes have it, so ordered. A motion to appoint RKL to serve as the township's HR resource.
Move.
Seconded. Questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those if any, the ayes have it, so ordered. A motion to provide conditional approval to the Dorme Land Development Plan conditioned on the satisfaction of all review comments from SDEI and the recommendation from the planning commission that the plan be approved with all waivers as applicable and approved.
Move.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those if any, the ayes have it, so ordered. I need a motion to reduce the closeout the bond from Uday and Sons LLC for the Route 61 Dunkin' Donuts project from $501,606.42 to 0.
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those if any, the ayes have it, so ordered. A motion to reduce the letter of credit for MF Inc. for the Fairmont Avenue Phase 4 redevelopment project to $94,803.50.
Move.
Second.
Questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those if any, the ayes have it, so ordered. A motion to approve the sewage planning module for the Fairmont Avenue Phase 4 redevelopment project.
Move.
Questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those if any, the ayes have it, and so ordered. A motion to authorize the solicitor to advertise a public presentation to discuss the township MS4 plan at the May Board of Commissioners meeting.
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those if any, the ayes have it, so ordered. I need a motion to award the 2022 paving project contract date to Alan Myers in the amount of $484,000, and contract fee to Greenstone Excavating, bless you, in the amount of $84,000.
Move.
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those if any, the ayes have it, so ordered. I need a motion to enter into agreement with Ronnie Folk Paving to pave the unfinished portion of Oak Street at a cost not to exceed $16,616.
Move.
So.
Questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those if any, the ayes have it, and so ordered. Under new business that's not on your agenda, based on our meeting that was at the meeting last week, with our conversation with the Muhlenberg Township Authority, we're going to advertise for a public meeting with the authority, both boards, on May 18th. That's a Wednesday at 5:30 to discuss the future needs of water with the community and the conversation regarding the well at Chimney Park. So Mr. Setley will advertise that on behalf of the township and the Muhlenberg Township Authority. So I don't believe we have any motion.
No, I'll just take care of it.
Thank you. Any other commissioners with any other new business? Any further public portion? Anyone wish to speak on the second public portion? All righty, staff comments. Well, hey, chief, you're in the back there. We'll fall fire all the time. You might as well. Thank you for sending us the link to the meeting today. So,
Sure.
go ahead, chief.
I'd like to thank the commissioners, obviously, for your input, and Mark, obviously, his passion runs deep. He's done this for a long time. It comes from a good place. I worked with Mark for many years in town, as actually his partner, believe it or not, for a short period of time before I promoted. So I know where that comes from with Mark. I think ultimately there are things that, obviously, as you said, we need to discuss, and I think we'll get in that place and discuss these things and look to move forward and progress the department the best we can. There are a lot of variables to running a volunteer fire department. There's no doubt about that. And ultimately for us, we're always looking to serve the public the best we can with what we have. That'll never change. So you have my word that I'm going to do my best to provide those services always in this position. And again, I appreciate Judy and Mark coming here tonight and raising, their concerns for what's going on as well. Thank you.
Thank you, chief. All right. Who wants to start? Chief Hines, since we're on the chief.
Yeah, sure. Just regarding this ordinance that commissioners passed tonight for combating fraud, it's really important because one main part is identifying the person who's using a credit card to make sure they're authorized. We have a lot of stolen credit cards. We have a lot of cloned credit cards. And a lot of the vendors do not ask for identification at point of sale. You probably all know that. But that's one major part. The other part is to help stop scams against our citizens, especially the elderly people who become victims of a whole different variety of claims by these criminals that entice them to buy gift cards and give them the number that they could use on the internet. And our detectives are at work all the time trying to defeat this. So we think this is a tool that will help us. So we appreciate you guys passing that for us. And we're going to start off with an educational aspect for our businesses to let them know this is what you can do to help reduce crime in the township and protect our citizens.
Thank you. Karen, who's actually Jim Bobeck, according to your name.
Switch seats.
I did, sorry, my fault. So recently we had a children's egg hunt over at the recreation building because the weather was bad. We had 182 kids, which I think was a pretty good turnout for an indoor egg hunt. Last Thursday, we had an adult egg hunt after dark, and believe it or not, we had more adults at the egg hunt than we had the children, at the children's egg hunt. We had slightly over 200, so, adults like to have fun too. We are hosting a disc golf course 101 session on Saturday, this Saturday, April 24th, from 10 to 11:30 at Laurel Lane Park. There's no cost, but we do ask you to register online. Next week, the lunchtime concerts in the park are coming back on Thursday, April 28th, from 11:30 to 1 over at Jim Dietrich Park near Pavilion number 2. The jazz band from the middle school and high school are coming out to play for us, and light refreshments are available underneath the pavilion. We have a pickleball 101 session that is going to be held on April 30th at the Temple Courts, and we are at capacity with 30 people at that session signed up. So if you want to learn about pickleball and what to do, next month, mid-May, the 14th, we're having our spring flea market out of Jim Dietrich Park, first one of the seasons. We're about half full with that, 55 spots sold so far. And the last thing I want to mention is the Muhlenberg night at the Reading Fighting Phils is gonna be Saturday, May 14th. It's a game at 6:45 with Bowie Bay Sox. General admission tickets should be here tomorrow for distribution. And we're gonna recognize the Muhlenberg Fire and Rescue Department, and they're gonna be recognized on the field that night, so that should be pretty cool. So,
Thank you, Karen. Mr. Bell?
No, stop.
Joseph?
Everyone should have received your copy of the Township magazine by now. If you haven't, call customer service or see if you can pick this up. And piggybacking off the chief, there'll be a seminar for retailers and the public, probably closer at the end of May. I think we're looking at the 19th right now, so stay tuned on the website. We'll have it posted there. So we'll have 2 sessions, myself, Sergeant Swear, and Detective Carvalho, and a 1 o'clock and a 6 o'clock.
Same.
Everyone be ready.
Jeremy?
With your approval of this evening on the motion, we will be doing 9 roads this summer. Probably when school's closed, even though they are quiet roads, which will take our total to about 60 portions of 64 roads in 10 years. So I'm pretty proud of that. But you can look, the residents will be notified on all these streets and on the website. Joey will have, make sure it's posted for everyone to know what roads and when we're doing them.
All right, thanks, Jeremy. Dylan? Mr. Bellbeck?
2 items. One, there's a planning commission meeting this coming Wednesday. Number 2, the city decided, I guess it was last year, that they needed to, well, the state told the city that they needed to draw down Bernhardt's, the reservoir at Bernhardt's Dam. That work is scheduled to begin the 25th of April. What that's going to look like is that the contractor will be required to remove 1 foot of water elevation from the lake per day. So there should be a minimal impact to the properties downstream. We have mailed notifications to residents in what DEP classifies as an inundation zone. That is an area that if there were catastrophic failure, the houses would see water from the street in their area. Nobody expects to have any issues there, but we wanted to make the residents aware. There's also information on our website in regards to the project.
Thank you, Jim. Commissioner Lurch? Our number 1.
We're your elected officials, and we are here to be held accountable to the general public. So I appreciate when we have the general public come and talk to us and engage us and hold us accountable. We're very passionate. I appreciate Mark's passion. I appreciate Judy's passion. I appreciate that they come to meetings. And I appreciate that they speak up. Too many residents will stay home and, they'll do things like go to a restaurant and complain, but residents don't come and talk to people that they should be talking to let their voices be heard. I think this board is very passionate. So when I counter with my passion, I don't want to seem as if I'm coming across as adversarial. But I also want to make sure that the public understands that you don't have a board here that sits with their thumbs in their ears and doesn't hear what you're saying and doesn't take action. We may not take action as fast as you want us to, and we may not always take action in the way that you want us to, but that doesn't mean that we're not here serving the public or that we're not taking these things to heart. So I appreciate these conversations, and I encourage you to come and continue to have them. I just, it's good to have other board members to remind us sometimes, take that extra breath, to keep things from getting uncivil, because uncivil meetings don't accomplish anything. So I appreciate you coming, I appreciate your voices, and I hope you appreciate also the hard work that we try to do for you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Commissioner Emo?
Yeah, you heard we're gonna be doing 64 roads in the last 8 or 9 years, actually. It's quite an accomplishment. It's not like we're sitting on a big pile of money. Your tax dollars are at work. we've had conversations about the fire company and there's more to come. But we just can't do things like that. It just doesn't happen. Years ago, I sat in meetings when there was only 3 or 4 people in the entire room. Look at you now. You're doing exactly what you need to do, get involved. It's unfortunate that there's no volunteers anymore, or people are unwilling to volunteer. That's a shame, but that's the way things are going. And we're trying to do what is going to be right. We're not looking at just a day or a few weeks from now. We're looking at the future 5, 10 years from now. Are we going to be able to afford a paid fire company 10 years down the road? It's coming. But things don't work just as quick as maybe we'd all like. I'm offended by the fact that when you walked away, you said that I don't care. That's total bullshit. I think most people know that I'm very passionate. I appreciate your passion, but I'm not going to have anybody say they don't care.
I'll rescind my statement. I apologize. It was under my breath and I apologize. That was inappropriate.
Well, it was under your breath loud enough for everybody to hear it. So I appreciate the apology. We're done. Sometimes I feel like I just sooner go fishing, but the fact is, we're all passionate about Muhlenberg Township. We're all trying to do the right things. Thank you.
Visual. I didn't think we'd have this many people here tonight with the way. Thanks for coming out. If you read the newsletter that just came out, there was an article about a landlord seminar. We put that together. It's been on my mind for a while. A couple of years ago, I became a landlord. Acquired a property, thought I would rent it out, and I was an amateur. I mean, how do you get the best tenant? How do you advertise? How do you get rid of the tenant you don't like? Why do you get rid of the tenant? What's my responsibility? What's their responsibility? I mean, I did a lot of reading on the subject, but we have 700 apartments basically being rented out in our township. And the article basically says, whether you live in Muhlenberg or not, you're a valued part of this community, because how you maintain your property, number one, keeps the value of your property up, but also keeps your neighbors' properties up. How you select the right tenant, so that if you have a 2-bedroom apartment, you don't have 8 people living there. The loud music goes across the border to your neighbors. See, well, there's things that we can't legislate, but a landlord has that control. A landlord basically interviews the person, sees who's living, can knows who's living there. Lets the school know who's living there. So there's no people living there that shouldn't be. So we're going to have a seminar hopefully in June, and I'd like to have a professional apartment manager attend with a lease that they would use for renting out a property that protects the landlord, and answer a lot of these questions. And also, I'd like to have some people here from codes to basically tell the people out there what their responsibilities are. Does the landlord cut the grass or not? If the landlord does not cut the grass and the tenant doesn't cut the grass, the landlord's responsible. So there's a lot of things in this whole scheme of the person's putting a lot of financial money up front, buying the property, and I want to see that value grow and protect our neighborhoods. And that's why we're going to have the seminar. So if you know anybody who's a landlord, it's going to be free. It'll be here. And the email address is in the article in the newsletter. It's basically my email address, swolfinger@muhlenbergtownship.com. Please pass the word around, and I'd like to have a lot of people here, a lot of questions and answers. And the landlords, I'm sure, gonna have questions for us, is why do we have to have an inspection every 3 years, and that type of a thing. So I want to give and take type of process during this seminar.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Lumpia.
Well, certainly, I wanted to highlight that, we make tough decisions. I think Commissioner Malinowski said something when I first joined the board is we have difficult conversations all the time. It doesn't, not conversations that you see out here in public necessarily, and certainly not everything is rainbow and sunshine. I'm proud to serve on this board, and I'm proud that for the most part, we keep our heads and we interact with the public, who's also equally as passionate on a monthly basis. And so I'm proud, and hopefully, you can see things eventually have gotten better with a lot of things that we have our hands in. So I appreciate everybody's passion to a lot of different things. We do put in a lot of effort. I just want to say a lot of it goes unseen. To that point, speaking of rainbows and sunshine, we're coming into spring and people are starting to get out of their houses, and that's a very good thing. So be aware for kids running around on the roads, and be kind to your neighbors. Catch you next month.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I'd also like to thank, we don't do enough as some of them are sitting here, all of our board members that serve on all of our volunteer boards also who put a lot of work in, and hopefully we keep our planning commission busy, and we have a lot of good stuff coming into the community, and I know they're seeing a lot of plans right now and a lot of good things that are happening. So I don't want them to go left unnoticed too. A lot of them stay with which unfortunately, the chief, fire chief has a tough time wrangling several people with several dates, and that's always a tough thing with people. Everyone knows this is not our full-time job, I hope so. But we do have other things we do, except Bush. We do have other things that we do, but the other thing, just to Judy's point, is regarding the fireworks. We'll continue to educate the public on fireworks. We constantly do that as it gets closer and closer to the holidays, whether it's through 8-frame signs across the community, not just through the newsletter, because quite frankly, Judy, ones who are violating the policy aren't reading the newsletter. So we'll do what we need to do, as we've done before, is go out into the community and try to make sure that they're aware of the ordinances and things of that nature. So we do take that very seriously, and I think we've gotten a lot better. However, I think where we really need to go is upstairs to our senator or to Representative Rowley's office, who changed the law, and we're stuck with it. So I think that's where the conversation needs to happen. So thank you all for coming. Everyone, go Sixers. Have a great day.